Hello, my name is Marco, and I am from a small town in Italy. Since I was a teenager, I dreamed of speaking English fluently. English is important for many reasons. It helps with getting a good job, making friends around the world, traveling, and finding new opportunities. Everyone around me seemed to agree. English was the key to success. One day I decided I am going to learn English properly. I will go to New York and study. But when I told my parents, they were shocked. They said, "No, Marco, it's too far. You can learn English here in Italy." But I knew I wanted something bigger, a real adventure. I wanted to be fully surrounded by English, so I didn't give up. I kept telling them, "This is my dream. I want to go. I need this for my future." Finally, after some time, they agreed. My heart felt like it was flying already. The day finally came to leave for New York, and I was both excited and nervous. It was my first time on a plane. As I packed my bag, my dad teased me. "Hey, Marco, maybe you'll find a nice American girlfriend." I laughed and said, "No, Dad, that's your job. I want an arranged marriage." We all laughed, but I could see a little sadness in my mom's eyes. I hugged her tightly and told her, "I will miss you. I promise to call every day." At the airport, everything felt new and a bit scary. There were so many people from different countries. I could hear people speaking different languages, and I thought, one day I will be able to speak English just like them. I found my seat on the plane by the window, and as we took off, I looked out and saw Italy disappearing beneath the clouds. My heart raced. I was really on my way to New York. When I landed in New York, it was like entering a new world. The city was huge, loud and fast. People walked quickly. Cars honked, and everyone spoke English at full speed. I felt like I was in a movie. I took a deep breath and thought, "This is it, Marco. This is where your dream begins." I joined an English program at a university. On my first day, I was nervous, but I met my teacher, Mr. Johnson. He smiled warmly and said, "Welcome, Marco. I'm excited to help you learn English." He spoke slowly and clearly, which made me feel calm. I could understand him a little, and that gave me confidence. I thought, maybe I can do this after all. In the beginning, it was difficult. Everyone around me spoke English fluently, and I struggled. When my classmates talked, I could only catch a few words. They would laugh and chat, and I felt like I was on the outside, just watching. It was lonely sometimes, but I kept reminding myself, "You're here to learn. Don't give up." Mr. Johnson saw that I was struggling, so he gave me some advice. He said, "Marco, the most important thing is to listen. Don't worry if you don't understand everything. Just listen to how people speak, the rhythm, the sounds. Let English become familiar to you." This was my first big lesson. Every day I listened carefully. I would go to the park, sit on a bench, and listen to people talking. Sometimes I didn't understand, but I enjoyed listening anyway. It felt like my ears were slowly adjusting to this new language. One day, a classmate named Sarah invited me for coffee. She said, "Hey, Marco, do you want to join us for coffee?" At first, I didn't understand what she meant by join us, but I smiled and nodded. I thought, why not? That day, I learned that join us means to go with others. Sarah became my first friend, and from then on, I started feeling more comfortable. Mr. Johnson gave us many tips. He told us to carry a notebook and write down new words we heard each day. So every time I heard a new word, I wrote it down, looked it up later, and practiced saying it. Another tip was to think in English. At first I thought it was impossible. My thoughts naturally came in Italian, but Mr. Johnson said, "Start small, Marco. Try simple sentences like, I am hungry, or today is a good day." So I tried. Each morning I would wake up and think, "Good morning, Marco." Slowly my mind started accepting English words. One afternoon I went to a small coffee shop near the university. The barista asked, "What would you like?" My mind went blank. But then I remembered the words Mr. Johnson taught us. I replied, "I would like a coffee, please." The barista smiled and handed me my coffee. It was a small moment, but I felt proud. I had spoken English without fear. Every small step felt like a big victory. I was growing little by little. I started to enjoy my life in New York, even if it was challenging. I knew this journey was just beginning. And even though I missed my family, I felt stronger with each passing day. I reminded myself, you're here to learn, Marco. You're here to follow your dream. As the days went by in New York, I found myself learning something new about English every day. But let me tell you, it was not always easy. Some days felt like climbing a mountain, and other days felt like I was stuck, not moving forward at all. But I learned to celebrate small victories and not worry too much about mistakes. Mr. Johnson was not just a teacher. He was my guide and my biggest support in this journey. Each day, he would share new tips that helped me feel a little closer to becoming fluent. One of the most important tips he gave us was to practice speaking without worrying about mistakes. He told us, everyone makes mistakes, even native speakers. Don't be afraid. The more you speak, the more confident you will feel. So I started practicing small sentences with my classmates and even with strangers. I would say things like, "Hello, how are you?" Or, "Can you help me find this place?" Every time I spoke, I felt a little more comfortable. One of my biggest challenges was remembering new words. English has so many words, and I often felt lost. Mr. Johnson advised us to learn 5 new words every day. He said, write down the words, find their meanings, and use them in sentences. This tip was simple but powerful. I made it a habit. Every night before going to bed, I wrote down 5 words I had learned that day. For example, if I learned the word adventure, I would write a sentence like, "This journey to New York is an adventure for me." Practicing with sentences made the words stick in my memory. Slowly, I started building my vocabulary. My pronunciation wasn't perfect, and I sometimes felt embarrassed. Mr. Johnson taught us a technique for improving it. He said, listen to native speakers and repeat after them. Try to copy the way they say words, even the way they move their mouth. So I started watching short videos of people speaking English and tried to mimic them. I also practiced in front of the mirror, repeating words and sounds. At first, it felt strange, but I could feel my pronunciation improving. One day, I decided to go to a cafe and practice my English. I walked up to the counter confidently and said, "I would like a coffee, please." The barista smiled and asked, "What size?" I didn't understand what she meant. Size, I thought. I had never thought about the size of coffee before. I felt a bit nervous, so I just guessed and said, Medium. The barista handed me a big coffee, much larger than what I was used to in Italy. I laughed to myself. It was a funny reminder that there were still so many things I didn't know about American culture. But I was learning, and every experience, even the funny ones, was teaching me something new. Mr. Johnson always said, "If you want to become fluent, start thinking in English." At first, this sounded impossible. My thoughts always came in Italian, but Mr. Johnson told us to start small with simple thoughts like, "I am hungry," or "It is a sunny day." So each morning, I made an effort to think small thoughts in English. When I walked around the city, I would think to myself, "The weather is nice today," or "I like this park." Slowly, I noticed my mind starting to accept English words. It was like opening a door to a new world. English was no longer just a language I was learning. It was becoming part of my daily life. In the first few weeks, I was very shy about speaking English. I was scared people would laugh at my accent or not understand me. One day, Mr. Johnson noticed I was quiet in class and asked me, "Marco, are you nervous about speaking English?" I nodded, and he gave me advice that changed my perspective. He said, "Remember, Marco, every single person in this class is learning. Nobody is perfect, and in life, people admire confidence. When you speak, speak with confidence. Even if you're not sure, people will respect that." From that day, I decided to be brave. I didn't let my mistakes stop me. When I spoke, I tried to speak with confidence. Sometimes I said things wrong, but I noticed that people were kind and patient. They appreciated my effort, and this gave me more courage. One day in class, Mr. Johnson organized a discussion. He asked us, "Why do you think English is important for your future?" We all shared our answers. Some classmates said they wanted to get good jobs. Others said they wanted to travel. When it was my turn, I thought for a moment and then said, "For me, learning English is not just about a job. It's about connecting with the world. English is a bridge, and I want to cross that bridge to meet new people and experience new cultures." My classmates nodded, and I realized that learning English wasn't just about language. It was about growth. I was becoming more open-minded and confident with each passing day. Grammar was challenging for me. English grammar felt very different from Italian, and I often made mistakes. Mr. Johnson noticed my frustration and said, "Grammar is like a tool. You don't need to be perfect at it right away. Focus on learning the basics, like forming sentences, using the right tense, and making simple sentences." He gave us a tip to practice: write one short paragraph every day. So I started writing about my day in English every night. I would write things like, "Today I went to the park. I met a new friend. We had coffee together." It was simple, but it helped me understand how to form sentences. With time, I noticed that grammar wasn't as scary as I thought. It was just a tool to help me express myself better. As I grew more confident, I started making friends. Sarah, my first friend from class, introduced me to a few other students. We would go out for coffee, visit museums, or simply walk around New York practicing our English together. Each conversation felt like a small step forward. I was no longer alone. I had friends who shared the same journey, the same dream. One evening, as I sat in my room, I thought about my journey so far. I realized that learning English was not just about language. It was about courage, persistence, and believing in myself. Every day, I felt myself growing, not just in English, but as a person. I was becoming more confident, more open, and more curious about the world. I knew my journey was far from over, but I also knew that I would keep going, no matter how hard it got. Learning English was my dream, and each day in New York was making that dream feel more real. As time passed, I felt myself growing more comfortable in New York. Each day brought new challenges, but it also brought new achievements, even small ones. I was learning that English was not just a language. It was a way to experience life more fully, to connect, and to find new opportunities. One day, Mr. Johnson began class with a question. He asked, "What would you do if you could speak perfect English right now?" It was a surprising question. I thought for a moment, and then I answered, "I think I would be less afraid to meet new people. I could travel anywhere without feeling nervous. I would feel free." Mr. Johnson nodded and said, "You know, Marco, fluency isn't just about speaking perfectly. It's about confidence. It's about being brave enough to try, even when you're unsure. That's true fluency." His words stayed with me. From that day, I tried to speak more confidently, even when I wasn't sure about my grammar or pronunciation. And I noticed something amazing. People responded to my confidence. They listened to me, helped me, and encouraged me. Mr. Johnson suggested I join the university's English club. I was nervous at first. What if I don't understand everything? What if people laugh at my accent? I asked myself. But I decided to give it a try. On my first day, I walked in and saw students from all over the world. They were from Brazil, China, Germany, Japan, each one learning English just like me. Suddenly, I didn't feel so alone. We were all facing the same struggles, and we were all there to help each other. In the English club, we played games, had debates, and even shared stories about our countries. I shared stories about Italy, about the food, the beautiful cities, and my family. And in return, I learned about cultures from around the world. We laughed together, sometimes struggled to find the right words, but always supported each other. It was like a little family. In the English club, I met Alex, a friendly guy from Canada who was studying psychology. He had a natural way of explaining things that made English easier to understand. He told me, "Marco, learning English isn't about being perfect. It's about expressing yourself." We started hanging out more often. Alex became my conversation partner. We would go to cafes, talk about our lives, our dreams, and even our fears. Every time we met, I learned new words and phrases. He taught me slang words like cool and awesome, and even some expressions that Americans use. Talking with Alex made me feel more confident because he always encouraged me and never made me feel judged. One day, Mr. Johnson announced that our class would have a public speaking challenge. Each of us had to prepare a short speech in English and present it in front of the class. My heart started beating fast. Speaking in front of people was my biggest fear. At first, I wanted to find an excuse to skip that day. But then I remembered why I had come to New York. I didn't want to run away from challenges anymore. With Alex's help, I prepared my speech. I decided to talk about my journey, about leaving Italy, moving to New York, and all the things I had learned so far. Alex listened to me practice and gave me tips. He said, "Marco, just be yourself. People want to hear your story." Finally, the day arrived. When it was my turn, I stood in front of the class. My hands were shaking and I felt my heart pounding. But I took a deep breath and started speaking. "Hello, everyone. My name is Marco, and I am from Italy. I came to New York to learn English, to make new friends, and to explore a new world. At first, I was scared. I couldn't understand people, and I felt lost. But every day, I learned something new. And today, I am proud to say that I am not afraid anymore." As I finished my speech, the class clapped, and I felt a rush of happiness. I had done it. I had faced my biggest fear and survived. More than that, I felt free. Free from the fear that had held me back for so long. After my speech, Mr. Johnson shared more advice with the class. He said, "If you want to speak fluently, remember these 3 things. Practice every day. Listen more than you speak. And never stop learning." He encouraged us to watch English movies, listen to English songs, and even read simple books. I started watching short English shows and movies. At first, I used subtitles, but over time, I began understanding without them. It felt like a small victory each time I understood a whole sentence without help. Mr. Johnson also taught us the importance of setting small goals. He said, "Don't just aim to be fluent. Break it down. Maybe this week, focus on learning new words. Next week, work on speaking for 5 minutes without stopping." Small goals lead to big progress. Following his advice, I made weekly goals. Some weeks, I focused on pronunciation. Other weeks, I tried to learn new vocabulary. I celebrated every small success, knowing it was bringing me closer to my goal. Living in New York was not always easy. Sometimes I felt homesick, missing my family, the food, and the familiar sounds of Italy. But every time I felt down, I reminded myself why I was here. I was here to grow, to learn, and to create a new path for myself. I began to see challenges as learning opportunities. For example, once I got lost in the subway and didn't know how to ask for directions, but I took a deep breath, asked a passerby, and managed to find my way. Each experience made me a little braver. One evening, as I sat in my room, I thought about how far I had come. When I arrived in New York, English felt like a tall wall I couldn't climb. Now, it felt like an open road with endless possibilities. I had friends, a support system, and the confidence to keep moving forward. I realized that learning English was not just about words and grammar. It was about overcoming fears, making friends, and believing in myself. Every mistake, every difficult day had shaped me into a stronger person. I continued my English studies in New York. I realized that my journey was just beginning. The more I learned, the more opportunities appeared, and I felt excited about the future. One day, during class, Mr. Johnson announced a community project where students could volunteer to help teach English to immigrants. I was immediately intrigued. This was my chance to give back while improving my own English. I signed up without hesitation. On the first day of the project, I met my students. They came from many countries: Mexico, India, Russia, and more. They were eager to learn, and I felt a connection with them. I remembered how nervous I had been when I first arrived in New York. Teaching them English was a beautiful experience. I prepared simple lessons, focusing on everyday conversations, vocabulary, and pronunciation. I realized that teaching others helped me reinforce my own skills. Each time I explained a word or a phrase, I grew more confident in my own understanding of the language. One of my students was a woman named Maria from Mexico. She was kind and hardworking, but she struggled with speaking English. One day she told me, "Marco, I want to be able to talk to my children's teachers. I want them to be proud of me." Her words inspired me. I worked with Maria on simple sentences and pronunciation. We practiced every week, and slowly I saw her confidence grow. One day she came to class smiling. "I spoke to my son's teacher today. I was nervous, but I did it." I felt a rush of joy. Watching Maria succeed motivated me to push myself even harder. It showed me that learning English was not just about me. It was about helping others and making a difference in their lives. Outside of classes and teaching, I began exploring New York more. I visited famous places like Central Park, the Statue of Liberty, and Times Square. I love the energy of the city, the mix of cultures, and the diversity of people. One Saturday, Alex invited me to a street fair in Brooklyn. There were stalls with food from different countries. I tried tacos, sushi, and even some Indian curry. While I ate, I practiced my English by talking to the vendors. I asked them questions about their food, where they were from, and how they learned to cook. Each conversation helped me improve my speaking skills. At the fair, I also met people from different backgrounds. I made friends with a girl named Priya, who was studying fashion. She invited me to a fashion show she was working on. I had never experienced anything like it before. I watched as models walked the runway, and I listened to the conversations around me. It was a chance to see English used in a different context, and I loved it. As I became more confident in my English, I heard about a debate competition at the university. At first I hesitated. What if I make mistakes? I thought. But then I remembered Mr. Johnson's words about facing fears. I decided to join the competition. Preparing for the debate was challenging. I had to research my topic and learn how to argue my points effectively. I worked late into the night, practicing my speech in front of the mirror. I could feel my heart racing as the day of the competition approached. When the day arrived, I felt a mix of excitement and nerves. I took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage. As I started speaking, I felt my confidence grow. I focused on my message and my passion for the topic. When I finished, I received applause, and my heart soared. I didn't win, but I had done it. I had spoken in front of a large audience, and it felt amazing. After the debate, I realized the importance of reading in, improving my English. I started visiting the local library. I chose books that interested me, stories about travel, adventure, and friendship. I found that reading helped me understand sentence structures and expand my vocabulary. One book that captivated me was The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. It told the story of a young shepherd who followed his dreams. As I read, I felt a connection to the character's journey. Just like him, I was following my own dreams in a foreign land. I made it a habit to read a little every day, and I noticed my comprehension improved. I began to understand more of what I read and could express my thoughts better. In this digital age, technology became my best friend in learning English. I discovered language exchange apps where I could chat with native speakers. I met people from the USA, Canada, and the UK, and we helped each other learn. Through video calls, I practiced speaking in real time. I felt the fear fading away. I learned idioms, phrases, and slang that I wouldn't find in textbooks. Each conversation opened a new door to understanding the culture and language. One night, I chatted with a girl named Emily who was studying biology. We talked for hours about our dreams and experiences. She said, "Don't be afraid to make mistakes. They are part of learning." Her encouragement fueled my determination to keep improving. As I continued volunteering and participating in events, I started to feel a sense of belonging. I attended cultural events, workshops, and even a cooking class. I learned how to make traditional dishes from different countries and shared my own Italian recipes. I organized a potluck dinner with my friends from the English club. Everyone brought a dish from their culture, and we shared stories about our countries. It was a beautiful evening filled with laughter, food, and friendship. Looking back, I was amazed at how much I had grown. The nervous boy who had arrived in New York was now a confident man, speaking English and building relationships. I realized that every challenge had shaped me, and every moment of fear had turned into a moment of strength. I was more than just a student learning a language. I was a part of a vibrant community. Each friend I made, each lesson I learned, and each experience I had brought me closer to my goal. As the semester progressed, the excitement in my English class was palpable. Our final exams were approaching, and the air buzzed with a mix of anxiety and determination. I felt a sense of urgency to prove not just to my teachers, but to myself how far I had come. Mr. Johnson organized a special review session to help us prepare. He gathered us in the classroom, filled with bright posters and inspiring quotes. "This is your chance to show what you've learned," he said. "Remember, it's not just about the grades. It's about growth and understanding." I sat at the front, eager to absorb every word. My classmates were just as excited, sharing tips and encouraging one another. We practiced speaking and writing together, each person contributing their strengths. As we worked, I realized how much I had grown. I was no longer the shy boy who could barely string a sentence together. I was a part of a community, ready to conquer my fears. One evening while I was studying, my phone rang. It was my mother. I picked up, and her voice came through, filled with warmth and love. "Marco, how are you doing?" she asked. "I'm good, Mom, studying for the final exam." "I'm a little nervous," I replied. "Remember what you've achieved, my son. You've come so far. We are proud of you," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "Your father and I always believed you could do it." Hearing my mother's encouragement gave me goosebumps. I felt a surge of determination. I wanted to make them proud, to show them that their support had made all the difference. The night before the exam, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, thoughts racing through my mind. I remembered all the challenges I had faced, the language barrier, the fear of speaking, the moments of doubt. But I also remembered the smiles of my friends, the warmth of my teacher's encouragement, and the joy of every little victory. I got up and went to the window. The city lights sparkled like stars. I took a deep breath and whispered to myself, I can do this. In that moment, I made a promise. No matter what happened in the exam, I would keep learning and growing. The day of the exam arrived. I walked into the classroom, my heart pounding. The room was filled with students, all ready to face the challenge. Mr. Johnson smiled at us, his eyes full of confidence. You've worked hard, and you're ready. Just remember to breathe and trust yourselves. As I sat at my desk, I opened the exam paper. Questions filled the pages, testing my reading, writing, and speaking skills. I focused on each question, recalling everything I had learned. My fingers flew across the pages as I wrote. I poured my heart into each answer, determined to show my progress. Halfway through the exam, something unexpected happened. I glanced at my watch and realized I had lost track of time. Panic set in. But then I remembered the breathing exercises Mr. Johnson taught us. I closed my eyes for a moment, inhaling deeply, and exhaled slowly. I felt the tension fade away. With renewed focus, I tackled the remaining questions. I thought of Maria, Priya, and all my classmates. We were in this together, and I knew we could support each other even if we were miles apart. After what felt like an eternity, the exam was over. I walked out of the classroom, my heart racing. I had done my best, and that was all I could ask of myself. A week later, the results were announced. As I entered the classroom, I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. Mr. Johnson stood at the front, holding the papers. He began reading names and scores. One by one, my classmates cheered, their joy filling the room. When he called my name, I held my breath. Marco Rossi, 90%, he announced. The classroom erupted in applause. I was overwhelmed with emotion. I had done it. I had proven to myself that I could succeed. Tears of joy filled my eyes as my classmates surrounded me, celebrating our achievements together. In that moment, I realized that learning English was not just about passing exams. It was about forming connections, sharing experiences, and building a future. To celebrate our hard work, Mr. Johnson organized a farewell party. We decorated the classroom with balloons and streamers, and each student brought a dish from their culture. The room was filled with laughter and delicious aromas. During the party, I stood up to share my journey. When I first came to New York, I was afraid. I couldn't understand anything. But with the support of my teachers and friends, I found the courage to keep going. English is not just a language. It's a bridge to connect with the world. As I spoke, I saw tears in Maria's eyes, pride on Priya's face, and smiles from my classmates. I felt a surge of gratitude. I realized that this journey was not just mine, it was ours. We had all faced challenges and celebrated victories together. As I prepared to leave New York, I reflected on my journey. I had learned so much more than just English. I had learned about perseverance, friendship, and the importance of believing in myself. I looked forward to returning to Italy to share my experiences with my family and to keep learning and growing. On my last night in New York, I walked through Central Park one last time. The stars twinkled above me, and I felt a deep sense of peace. "Thank you, New York," I whispered. "You have changed my life." Back home in Italy, I embraced my parents tightly. I shared my adventures, my struggles, and my successes. They listened, their eyes wide with pride. "You have become a young man, Marco," my father said, tears glistening in his eyes. "You have done what you set out to do." I smiled, knowing that this was just the beginning. I would continue to learn English, make new friends, and embrace every opportunity that came my way. The world was now open to me, and I was ready to explore it. In the end, I realized that learning English was not just a goal, it was a journey filled with challenges, triumphs, and endless possibilities. As I looked to the future, I knew I would face it with courage and confidence.